Welcome to Unit 2, Connecting with Kids in Foster Care. By the end of this unit, you will understand the importance of supportive relationships, know how to be a warm, caring presence, and be able to connect with children in foster care on a personal level.
First, let's talk about the importance of supportive relationships. Supportive relationships are vital in the lives of children within the foster care system. Janie was a young girl when she began attending a small rural church with her foster family. At school, other children regularly bullied Janie for being in the foster care system. Daily, Janie heard words that made her feel worthless, ashamed, and embarrassed. However, faithful older women began to invest in her at her little country church. They told her that God loved her and had a plan for her life. They spent time with her, teaching her scripture and songs of praise. They never pried into her story, but instead loved her, encouraged her giftings, and made her feel special. As a 10-year-old girl, Janie professed faith in Christ. Now, as an adult, she can name every woman who invested in her. These women were only with Janie a couple of hours a week, but Janie felt safe and connected, wanting to be there every time the doors were open. She could receive Christ's love for her because she felt seen, valued, and loved. Today, she is a faithful follower of Christ with a loving husband and children. She is teaching them the truths she learned so long ago.
We have the opportunity to be the hands and feet of Jesus to the kids in our community. Jesus cared for and deeply loved the hurting and the vulnerable. We can also care for the hurting and vulnerable through building supportive relationships. Through our words and our actions, kids can experience the love of Jesus, even when these moments are brief and we may have just a short time with them. Our warm, caring presence and personal connection with them will impact their beliefs about Jesus.
From a mental health standpoint, supportive relationships are also therapeutic, particularly for children who have experienced trauma. As the renowned child psychiatrist Dr. Bruce Perry has eloquently stated, it is relationships that are the agents of change. When children have access to caring and nurturing relationships, they are better equipped to heal from the adverse effects of trauma and navigate potentially traumatic situations with greater resilience. It is worth noting that positive relationships also serve as the foundation for effective discipline strategies. When children feel understood, respected, and valued within their relationships, their defenses are lowered, and they are more inclined to trust and buy into the guidance and boundaries set by caring adults.
So now that we understand the importance of supportive relationships, what's next? How do we create that kind of supportive space for our kids? Well, it begins by simply being a warm, caring presence, one that emulates the heart of God. In the book of Genesis, an Egyptian woman named Hagar found herself in a distressing situation. While in the desert, running away from her pain, an angel of the Lord came to her and ministered to her. At that encounter, Hagar called God El Roi. You are the God who sees me. As God's people, we want to follow that example, making children and teens feel seen. The simplicity of the message, I see you, is at the very center of God's heart.
Being a warm, caring presence can be as simple as greeting them by name, getting on their level while looking them in their eyes, and letting them know you enjoyed your time with them. Hearing our name is powerful. Praying for them throughout the week is, of course, hugely beneficial and a great help in remembering kids' names. As kids in foster care may move to a different placement, let's make the most of every encounter with that child and show them that they are loved by us personally, the church, and by God. Ask them specific questions about their week or themselves that require more than a yes or no answer. For example, you can ask, what's something fun you did this week? Or if it's a new kid, ask, who brought you to church today? To get some insight on their home life. If they are familiar with prayer, ask them how you can pray for them this week. And if they told you about something happening in the upcoming week, ask about it when they return. You say, I was praying for you in your science test. How did it go? Or what did you enjoy most about your field trip? This opens up conversation and communicates that you remember what they tell you.
Be consistent. Remember that children in foster care face upheaval and inconsistency at every turn. A different school, different parents, different siblings, a different church. The last thing they need is to have a different small group leader every week. Whatever your ministry role might be, take it seriously and show up predictably. If you know you're not going to be there one week, let the kids know ahead of time so they aren't surprised by your absence. If you're in a high contact role, like a Sunday school teacher or a small group leader, be there every week. Your kids need to know that they're going to see your smiling face the moment they walk in the door. And when your kids move up a grade, move up with them. That way, if a kid disappears for a year and suddenly shows up again, you'll be right there waiting for him. Whoa, Luke, you're back. I haven't seen you since fourth grade? This goes so far in creating a safe, warm, caring community, not just for kids in foster care, but for all the kids in your group.
Don't be put off if a child is non-responsive or doesn't want to talk. Continue to greet them by name, even if they fail to acknowledge you. Our response must be friendly and inviting, no matter how they respond. If a child is sitting alone in the back of the room, you can connect just by sitting nearby. This communicates that they're seen and that they matter.
Jackie, an attuned volunteer in the youth group, modeled this beautifully to Lydia. As a freshman in high school, Lydia had been in and out of the system, in and out of schools, and had never seemed to fit in anywhere. Every week before large group, Jackie made it a point to simply stand in Lydia's general proximity. She didn't try to pry into Lydia's life. Jackie simply drank her coffee in the same spot each week near Lydia. Eventually, Jackie made one simple statement to Lydia. I know it's hard to be new. I moved a lot when I was growing up. Sometimes knowing you have a person to stand with is helpful. I stand here every Sunday. That simple interaction made Lydia feel seen and valued.
Creating a safe, welcoming environment is crucial when serving kids in foster care. But relationship isn't just about being a warm and caring presence. It's also about connecting with kids in foster care on a personal level. To do this, we have to make a personal connection with each child individually, effectively navigate tough conversations as they arise, and work to gradually expand each child's support network within the church. So what are some practical steps that we can take to building a personal connection with a child in the ministry? One easy first step is to learn about their interests. What games does he like to play? What book does she like to read? What's his favorite YouTube channel? Find out what they're interested in and then talk to them about it. If they tell you about their favorite show, go watch an episode and bring it up the next time that you see them. This helps build rapport because it lets them know that you care about them.
Next, remember what they told you. Don't ask Logan if he plays any sports every time you see him. It'll be obvious that you're not really paying attention. I'll admit, this can be challenging, especially when you're working with a lot of kids and there's some you don't see very often. One strategy is to keep a small journal or notebook. Jot down what they told you, keep the notebook in a safe place, and review what you wrote before church the next week.
As you work to build a relationship, don't be pushy. Recognize that some kids are more apt to sharing their stories than others will be. Some might tell you their entire story the moment that they walk in the door, while others might not even say anything. Maybe they're afraid of rejection or retribution. In fact, you might never hear the child's story, nor do you have the right to their story. Even if a kid does choose to open up, you probably won't know the depths of their trauma that they've experienced. Fortunately, we don't need to have the whole story to be able to love them.
As hard as it is, try to be patient. Building trust takes time. For kids who have been hurt repeatedly in the past, it can take a very long time. Several years ago, I led a boys' small group in the youth program. Matthew joined our small group at the end of 8th grade. Right off the bat, he was very standoffish and socially awkward. I could tell there was a lot of hurt in his past. When I first introduced myself, I reached out to shake his hand, but he just stared at me and walked away. But I did not give up on Matthew. I saw him every Wednesday night and every Sunday morning, and whenever I did, I would say, "Hi, Matthew." Most of the time, he didn't even look at me. This continued into 9th grade, 10th grade, even 11th grade. He warmed up to the other kids in our small group and even to me, but he never once said hi to me. But I just kept saying, "Hi, Matthew," twice a week, every week for about 4 years. Finally, one Sunday morning, as I was walking across the back of the sanctuary before service, Matthew crossed my path, glanced over at me with a little wave, and said, "Hi, Robert." I was pretty much stunned. After spending 4 years in small group together, I had finally earned Matthew's trust. Our relationship grew deeper as he approached graduation, and even now that he's an adult, we still keep in touch. But man, did that take a lot of patience.
As you make the personal connection with the child, it is possible that they may begin to trust you with the more difficult parts of their lives. If this happens, be very thoughtful as you navigate these difficult conversations. First, try to avoid giving advice. This might seem counterintuitive because we feel the young person could benefit from our perspective. But remember that you know very little about the situation. Your advice could be misleading, and your admonition could do more harm than good. When I was a teenager, I had shared in youth group that I had started cutting and trying to control my weight. A youth leader popped in and said, "Yeah, we call that attention seeking." In reality, I was trying to get my mind on other things. I didn't want to think about what I was feeling or thinking with my abuse, and that was the response that I got. It made me feel dismissed, unseen, and uncared for. So instead of making assumptions and giving advice, listen with an open mind and ask the right questions.
When navigating a tough conversation, we want to avoid questions that may come across as intrusive or probing, such as, "Why can't you live with your parents?" Because this can further distress the child. Instead, ask open-ended questions that allow the child to share at their own pace, such as, "How are you feeling today?" Or, "Is there anything you'd like to talk about?" Validate the child's emotions and let them know that you are there to listen and provide support without pressuring them to disclose more than they are ready to. Here are some examples of helpful questions to ask kids in foster care. "I know things have been really tough for you. Is there anything you'd like me to understand better?" "I'm here to listen if you'd like to share anything about what you've been through." "What would help you feel safe right now?" "If you're ever feeling upset or overwhelmed, what are some things that would help you feel better?"
Keep in mind that children may feel ashamed of things that they've done or things that have been done to them. Reassure them that nothing that they say or choose to withhold can change how you feel about them. Also remember that kids often assume responsibility for the bad things that have happened in their lives. Reassure them that the situation is not their fault.
Finally, given that some children may reveal past or present abuse, it's crucial to know what you need to report, when, and to whom.
Expanding the child's support network. It can be difficult for kids who have experienced trauma to form secure attachments. So once you do form a strong personal connection with a child, you might become their secure base at church. In other words, they feel safe and secure at church as long as you are there. They'll participate in worship if they can stand next to you. They'll participate in small group if you're their small group leader. And they'll go to camp as long as they're in your cabin. On the one hand, this is a good thing. After all, they feel safe at church. They're participating in worship in small group, and they're going to camp. Because of their relationship with you, they are able to hear the message of Jesus and experience the love of God. On the other hand, this puts a lot of pressure on you. What if you can't go to camp? Well, now that kid's not going to want to go to camp either. So what do? The trick is to expand that child support network within the church while maintaining their secure base. This was the strategy I used several years back with my high school boys' small group. Many of the boys in my group came from a traumatic background, and they were very slow to trust new people. I reached out to another man in the church who I knew had strong Christian character and who also had similar life experiences as the boys in my group. After he went through the background check and onboarding procedure, I was able to welcome him to our group. The kids were very suspicious at first, but I vouched for him, and I started to include him in our small group activities. By the end of the year, the boys felt comfortable with him even if I wasn't around. Then, during their senior year of high school, I decided to invite my boys to our church's men's retreat. I was able to introduce them to other godly men, and by the time they graduated, they already had a broad support network among the men of the church. Supportive relationships are essential to reaching children and youth in foster care. This includes being a warm, caring presence, connecting with kids on a personal level, and gradually expanding their support network within the church. When we do this, we can make a meaningful impact on the child's life, even if we only get to interact with them for a seemingly short time.